And welcome. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 51 of the Detroit Metro podcast where connections matter. I am Charles, your host, and I bring you interviews of every week of difference makers in the area of entrepreneurship and community involvement here in the city of Detroit. So, welcome. Thank you for joining this live podcast. We're streaming live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and our Facebook page, the Detroit Metro Plug Podcast Facebook page. So, if you're viewing this live, I have a favor to ask. If you could follow, and share. We have a great guest, definitely a difference maker in the city of Detroit, a leader and a legend in our city. And so I'm excited about our guest. So if you're watching live on YouTube, please like and share. LinkedIn, thank you for watching on LinkedIn and on Facebook, like and share. So thank you for joining this podcast. Happy Sunday evening. We're here in Detroit, Michigan area. It is fall. It's getting dark early. The leaves are falling, and it's a great time if you enjoy that kind of weather. Some people complain about the cold or whatever, but I like a little change. So I'm excited about that. So before we get into our guests for this evening, before I introduce our guests, just a few quick announcements, upcoming things. For those who, if you're not aware, the podcast has adopted a local first grade class school. It's a first grade class. The school is in my old neighborhood. I grew up in the 7 Mile Lasher area. That's right. I said Lasher. I know you're supposed to say Losser, but people from that neighborhood, we say Lasher. But anyways, it's a school, used to be a YMCA. It's a charter school called the Detroit Service Learning Academy. And Miss Clark teaches first grade, and she's in need of some supplies. So we're doing a school supply drive for the month of October. There's a need for glue sticks, construction paper, laminated pouches, pencils, construction paper, uh, I think oh yeah, two pocket folders. Yes. And so more details about that. Our drop off location is also at a restaurant in that area on 7 Mile and Telegraph, Demi's Restaurant and Bar, local restaurant in the neighborhood I grew up in. That's the drop off. So you can drop off those supplies there at that local restaurant. Support a local black owned restaurant in that neighborhood. Also, you can support a local school in that northwestern neighborhood. And while you're at the restaurant, check out their Taco Tuesday night. And they have Monday Night Football, Taco Tuesday, other a great menu. So drop off supplies, get some food, and support a local restaurant. So there's that. Also, so that's the slide for the. There's a little basket you can drop off supplies at that restaurant. Also, save the date. Save the date. Um, October the 30th, we're having our fall business networking meetup at the Mary Grove College on Sunday, October 30th from 2 to 4 p.m. So calling all entrepreneurs, freelancers, business owners, new business owners, um, and community leaders. Come out, network with us. You can register on Eventbrite. There's a link. If you go on Eventbrite and type in Fall Business Networking Meetup, you'll find the information there. The cost is only $10. We're going to have a chance for you to meet like-minded entrepreneurs, community leaders, opportunity for you to also share about your business. And we're doing a live podcast. We have a special guest. Her name is Andrea Thompson. She's a certified financial educator, and she will be sharing about how to develop your business credit. How to develop your business credit. She teaches people how to go from zero to $50,000 and developing your own business credit and to leverage your personal credit to develop your business credit so that you can use those resources to enhance your business, to increase your reach. So looking forward to that conversation. Want to invite you to that. All right. So now we're going to introduce our special guests, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if everyone's aware. I'm learning more about it, but October, I know about October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Here in Detroit, they have a race for the cure downtown. I think it was at Belle Isle this year. But also, this is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month in October. Domestic Violence Awareness Month in October. And the color that represents domestic violence awareness is the color purple. And you may notice the background. I usually have a background of red or Detroit background, but we have purple to just honor what that represents. And so, our next guest was going to talk about her work in the city of Detroit. She is definitely a leader, activist, a legend in our city. She's a native Detroiter. She's a grad of Wayne State University in the area of social work, master's level social work. She's a licensed clinical social worker. Um, Also, she's a loctician. So if you are looking to get locks, or she does that. She has a lot of clients. So I don't know if she has to tell you she's taking new clients, but she's a loctician, clinical social worker, doing great things in the community. She founded the SASHA Center, which stands for Sexual Assault Services for Holistic Healing and Awareness. So if you guys don't know who I'm talking about the one and the only Kalimah Johnson.
Hi, good evening. How are you, Charles? Thank you for that introduction.
Yes, yes. Appreciate you. So what we do here on our podcast, not only we just bring difference makers, but we also have a platform where we like to give people their flowers, uh, and their contributions in the community, and we celebrate what you're doing. So we definitely appreciate you taking your time. I know you're a busy lady. You're doing things in the community. You have your practice and other things that you're doing. You're a loctician. So I just definitely thank you for your time to come on this platform. And so we just want to highlight about what you're doing and celebrate what you're doing in the community, and talk about domestic violence, and how it relates to, or we'll talk about what you're doing, how it relates to sexual assault, domestic violence, and tied into Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So before we go into all that, just share a little bit about yourself, where you're from, who you're with, whatever you feel comfortable.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you so much for the introduction. Again, my name is Kalimah Johnson. I am the executive director, the founder, and I always say participant of the SASHA Center. And we founded the organization 12 years ago. I was born and raised here in Detroit. A couple of interesting facts about me is I was one of the first female rappers on wax in Detroit, and I'm aging myself when I say on wax. But I used to be a recording artist on a record label here in Detroit called World One Records with Chaos and Maestro and Los and Easy B. So I have my hand or my foundational life rooted in hip hop here in the city of Detroit. And that kind of morphed later on as rap began to grow up, and the content in rap music started to change. And I became a spoken word and poet and artist in the poetry world, literature world. So I'm also someone who engaged in poetry in the city of Detroit for many years, and I was the slam master for the Detroit Slam poetry team. And then I was doing all that, and I used to work at the Detroit Police Department as a social worker, working in their domestic and sexual violence departments. Believe it or not, the Detroit Police Department does have a whole entire department for people who've experienced domestic and sexual trauma in the city of Detroit, where they have a whole team of social workers. And I did that for 10 years. And then I also served as a social work professor for Mary Grove College for about 4 years. And I've also worked with the Detroit Lions as a relationship safety and management consultant, working with all of their rookies. And I started with Matthew Stafford's class, and I was with them until that not the coach they have now, but the coach before that, when he took over. We kind of all kind of dispersed and did our own thing. But as a result of that work, I also am the lead consultant on relationship safety and management with the National Basketball Association. And I've been doing that for 11 years. But I know that we're here to talk about SASHA Center, and I'm so excited about that. And to also talk about and raise awareness around the issue of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And it's so interesting that you brought up Breast Cancer Awareness Month as well. A lot of people don't know this, but Breast Cancer Awareness Month started in 1983 in the United States. And Domestic Violence Awareness Month in October started in 1989. So they pretty much had, they started both in the 80s around bringing up these issues. And there are unfortunately so many people that are impacted by both. One of the things I wanted to really bring up, and perhaps we could talk about this a little bit more, Charles, is that there is a stigma that's attached to domestic violence. So when you think about it like this, it is breast cancer is a medical condition. So there's no one to blame for that. There's no fault to be had. People have more empathy and understanding when you're dealing with a medical condition. But for some reason, and we're still fighting against these notions and ideas about relationship safety and violence and the way they happen, and how society is set up, where we do a lot of victim blaming, unfortunately, in this country. There is some level of stigma or blaming that's attached to victims of domestic violence. And so there's not that many opportunities for us to really talk about it, to uplift it, to bring attention to it, and all of those things. So I want to say thank you for giving us this time tonight to bring awareness about Domestic Violence Awareness Month. They're both important issues. We should not ignore either. And I know women who have been victims of both breast cancer and domestic violence. And so it's something that we really need to talk about. And tonight, I hope that we have an opportunity to provide information, to dispel myths and facts, and to also talk about the programming that we have at the SASHA Center. So thank you so much for that. And I hope I covered everything.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to begin, if you don't mind, kind of your journey leading up to the SASHA Center. You shared a little bit in your bio. Of course, you're a native Detroiter, and you brought up, I failed to mention that in our intro, about your involvement in hip hop, and so you were the first female rapper recorded
One of the
single,
first. One of the first.
one of the first. Okay,
We
all
kind of
right.
all
So
was doing it at the same time, and some people did better than others. I wouldn't say I was the
right.
one that did the best, but I did actually have a record produced here in the city of
Okay.
Detroit.
So how
Yeah.
did you get involved in the hip hop culture? Was there certain people that you admire? Were you was there a role model before you that did music? You write poetry. How did you explain your
I
interest
don't,
in hip hop?
in order for me to explain that, I have to age myself, which is fine. I'm 54 years old, and I actually started rapping when I was about 12 years old.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I was interested in rap when I first heard the Sugar Hill Gang, when I first heard
Okay.
Roxanne Shante, when
Right.
and I said, Mom, I told my mother, I remember I said, Mom, I think I want to be a rapper. And she said, that's fine. You can be a rapper. I just want you to remember this. You are what you say. And if you can't say it in front of your sisters in this living room, you can't say it outside.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so when she told me that, I stuck to that. And then rap music started growing up and changing and morphing
Yeah.
itself. So
Okay.
instead of it being just about engaging our communities and lifting us up, it started turning into something else. Okay. And I don't have a
Right.
judgment
Right.
about that, but it started turning into something else. And then when it started doing that, I didn't feel like I had a place in there. And I kind of felt lost. But at the same time, thank God I was on World One Records and I had some great men who were my
Okay.
producers and my agents and my managers. And they just told me, they said, we'll sign you to this record label, but you can't be here and not go to college. Everybody got to be doing something. And
Oh wow.
fortunately, oh yeah, and fortunately, my label mates, most of them are out here doing major things. We got DJ Lowe's working with major rap labels and artists and producing songs all over the world. His dad, my producer, just finished playing in Paris with the Four Tops, and
Okay.
Jason Wilson and his work around manhood. He's doing excellent. He's got this new
Right.
documentary coming out. I mean, it's
Exactly.
already out. It actually did
Yes.
really well at Tribeca. And then we have
Yes.
Teferi Brent, who is actually one of our street navigators, and he's
Okay.
always advocating in the street. So those are my label mates. And we all still talk and we all still work together in some form or fashion. And they support the SASHA Center big time.
Okay.
And I kind of, like I said, I just kind of started doing something different. I just said, poetry and rap pretty much are cousins to each other. So I just started writing more poetry and performing more
Okay.
poetry. And I became the poet in residence for the Detroit Symphony Orchestra for a while there. And I
Wow.
integrate all of those things into the work that we do at the SASHA Center too. So
Wow,
And I
wow.
think, okay, so I want to say this. Let me say this too. Unless you were going to say something, I want to say
No, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
one of the main reasons why, once I got to college, I asked to be placed at an internship where I would work with victims of domestic and sexual assault because I grew up watching that, and I was a victim of dating violence, and I was also a victim of sexual assault as a young child. Once by a family member, and then twice in the context of dating, all before the time I was by the time I was 19. And I struggled. I struggled a lot trying to get through all of that. And when
Right,
I got to college and got settled into college, I said, well, I'm going to be a social worker. So when it was time
right.
for us to sign up for internships, I said, I want to work with that population, not realizing that I still had a whole lot of work to do myself. And so I was
Mhm.
able to fortunately be under the helm of some really amazing Black women who worked at that agency that just grabbed me and held on to me. And then I also had amazing white women allies who worked with me and taught me about activism.
Mhm.
So I just got a balance of all these folks pouring into me, and then I started to learn very. It didn't take. It wasn't quick. I wouldn't say quickly, but very intentionally. I started to begin to realize and see that Black women were being treated differently in our systems when they came to get help as a result of being sexually assaulted. And what I mean by that is, and you can, there's all kind of resources I could provide for people to watch. Particularly, there's an HBO documentary called "I Am Evidence," and it's about Kim Worthy and the work that she did to get our 11,000 rape kits tested here in the
Okay.
city of Detroit.
Mhm.
And what happened, unfortunately, is that rape kits were found in a warehouse that was being torn down, and it was 11,000 of them, and all of them had not been processed or investigated. And they were about to be in this building and be destroyed. And we learned that 81% of those DNA kits belonged to Black women. And so
Wow.
that was a tragedy here in the city. But the good news is that Kim Worthy came up with a program to get those kits processed and tested. Now we're working towards getting those kits investigated because almost all of them have been tested. But now we're trying to gain more realization that we still need to investigate these cases. And there are so many nuances around that. And so I was working at the police department and picking up and noticing these things. There were police reports where officers were writing things like this heifer is lying
Oh,
in
wow,
actual
wow.
police reports. And so when I left the Detroit Police Department, I was had on my mind. I just and I would talk to my supervisor all about it all the time. I'm like, I just think there is a different way that people who work in this area, people who do this kind of work, they just see Black women differently. So SASHA Center, I need to be real clear, is a sexual assault agency, and we provide services. And in the context of domestic violence, sexual assault does happen because there's an absence of consent when there's dynamics of power and control happening in relationships. But one of the things I said was, once I left there and I took a break and I just delved into poetry and doing locks for a few years, and I kind of rested and got myself and my head together. And I said, I think we need to come up with a program specifically addressing the needs of the African American community around these issues of sexual assault. And I was specific about sexual assault, but I also know that that happens in the context of dating relationships, people who you have children in common with, or you're living with, or dating, or
Right.
married to. And so October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so we always want to try to make sure that we remember those things. And then April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and that color is teal, which you'll see
Chill.
when they show the video. When you show the video, but more specifically, I started doing this work because I saw a need. I started doing this work because I was also in the process of healing myself. And
Okay.
I started doing this work because I believed it was something important to do for the city of Detroit and for citizens who live here. And I really wanted to spend time in the African American community because there's opportunities there for healing.
Wow, wow. Thank you for sharing your journey. You talked about that you were led to go into social work, and then also you wanted to intern and deal with issues that you dealt with yourself as a
Mhm.
child and as in dating, being a victim of sexual assault. And how did you make that transition to dealing with that and dealing with your own healing to helping others?
Um, like I said, I made that transition. Well, it's really interesting that you phrase it that way, because here's what we're telling folks at the SASHA Center now is
Okay.
that not only are we doing the work, but we are the work. And
You
so
are the
if
work.
we haven't been through something like this, we know somebody who has. And unfortunately, wherever Black men and women gather, there is sexual trauma or a history of some kind of sexual trauma. If not to everybody, then somebody that someone loves. And I believe that the transition into helping and being more specific in developing our programming at the SASHA Center, it happened as a result of me doing some consulting work with the Michigan Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence, which is also a resource that everybody can use if they want current statistics about these issues.
Yes.
I was consulting with them, and I was doing some trainings all over the state, and I experienced microaggressions, and by directors of these programs, I experienced that's enough, really. I can say more, but they were all based on whether or not I had the capacity or the knowledge or the smarts or what have you to even talk about these issues. Like, primarily all over the country, leaders in this field of domestic and sexual violence don't look like me. And so when I was finding
Wow.
myself in spaces where I was the only one, I felt myself having to push back on a lot of misappropriated ideas about Black women and their survival, about Black men and their capacity. And it has introduced an opportunity for us to do, again, like I said, a lot of integrative work, a lot of healing, a lot of conversation, a lot of hope within our community to make sure that our generations coming up behind us, after us, are not inflicted with the trauma of sexual abuse and domestic and dating violence. And a lot of it really requires for us to really think through and talk about the extent to which we believe myths and things like that have been happening in this country for years. And we also think about and talk about the ways in which being enslaved in this country and dealing with race
Right.
and racism and oppression also has a huge role in relationship safety and relationship management and domestic violence. And so very clear about that. Now, there are lots of clearinghouses and programs and things like that that are now happening more than they were in the past. And I'm thankful for that, because a lot of organizations actually have been informing us as well around their own work that they're doing related to this. Like, there is our UGMA national organization that actually spends a lot of time doing research and data to give us information and to inform us about how we do our work. One of the things and one of the statistics that they just came out with very recently is that for every 15 women, Black women who experience sexual assault, only one of them will call the police. And
Wow.
so, yeah. And then there are other ones like the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. I wanted to make sure we share it with you some numbers so y'all can understand how serious this problem is. And I'm just going
Wow.
to take a look at my notes right here. On average, and again, this is from ncadv.org, ncadv.org. It says here, on average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States.
Wow.
During 1 year, this equates to more than 10 million women and men. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience severe intimate partner physical violence, intimate partner contact, sexual violence, and or intimate partner stalking with impacts such as injury, fearfulness, post-traumatic stress disorder, use of victim services, contraction of sexually transmitted diseases, and it goes on. One of the things that I need you all to understand is that domestic violence is a public health issue. Sexual
Mm.
assault is a public health issue, and it has to be addressed. And we have to begin to address it by beginning to talk about it and lift it up and to bring up and do opportunities like this, like conversations around this. So 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. 1 in 7 women and 1 in 25 men have been injured by an intimate partner intimate partner. 1 in 10 women have been raped
Mm.
by an intimate partner. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have been victims of severe physical violence. And notice I'm giving you statistics about men and women, and that's such a binary number. But
Right.
there's also trauma and these kinds of issues and problems in the LGBTQI community and for gender non-conforming people as well. They are even at a more interesting risk because of their isolation and because they're in the margins. We're already
Right.
marginalized because of race, but then we're also extra marginalized because
Right.
of these other things. And a lot of times people think that Domestic violence is an act of violence, just somebody lost their mind at one particular time, or that domestic violence is just physical hitting. It's not.
Right.
Domestic violence is very dynamic in that it's about power and control. And one of
Right.
the things I always say when I'm particularly talking to my players is that power, somebody in that relationship who's trying to gain power and control, they will use things like isolation and name calling. They will use finances, the children. They will use victim blaming, all of these things to try to gain control. They'll use gender privilege. What gender privilege looks like, Charles, is,
Mm.
say for instance, a person identifies and lives in the construct of being a man every day, and they might say, hey, I run my house, I don't run around my house. And what kind
Right.
of behavior do they engage in to make sure they're still running their household?
Right. Right.
That could become something related to domestic violence. And then you'll have someone say, hey, I'm a female, if I hit you, you can't hit me back. That's
Right.
also domestic
Right.
violence, and using gender privilege in that way.
Right.
So some of the things I want people to understand and know is that, domestic violence is not just when someone hits somebody. It's really a
Hmm.
plethora of things. And financial abuse, like financial abuse looks like two things. You have to work all the time and give up all the money, or you can't work at all, so you don't have any money to try to leave.
Right.
And I talk to a lot of folks about this, particularly when I'm working with men, using gift giving as a way to have control and power over somebody. Like if I
Right.
buy you something, if you don't do or act the way I want you to do or act, then I
Right.
take it back, or I make it
Right.
not
Right.
available, or I hide the keys, or I hide your phone, or I take your
Right.
laptop because I bought it and you can't finish your class. I mean, it's just all these other dynamic things that happens in domestic violence. And people, it's my
Yes.
hope that when they hear this, that they understand that.
Wow, you it's a lot to unpack with what you said. Great information, great insight. A couple of questions. First of all, I like the fact that you describe, and you even said that in your introduction, that you are not only the founder of SASHA Center, but you are a participant,
Yeah.
and you tell everyone and you encourage everyone to say, "We are the work," and you use what you've experienced to help to heal others. I really commend you for that.
Thank
A
you.
couple of things. Uh, you said those who are victims of sexual assault, 15 to 1 out of 15 only report that to the police or to authorities.
For
Wow,
Black
that's
women, for Black
wow
women
for black
specifically.
women. Okay, and
So
then
Black
there's
women,
mhm,
yeah. So Ujima, which I'm gonna give you their website to go and look at their actual data that they came up with, this research data. Um, every 15 women who have experienced sexual assault, one will report it to the authorities or ask for help
right.
from a system.
Wow, wow. And I
Yeah.
find also it's interesting. I see like a pattern that would you agree that most of the sexual assault incidents are from people that they know or love
Absolutely. It's
or
somebody
family
that they
members?
know or they have in common, or someone that they spend time with in the
Wow.
workplace, at school, at church, at home. Yes, it's more than likely people that they know. That's another myth, especially regarding sexual assault, is that people think of this white van picking people up and
Right,
all these,
right, right,
all this stuff people send out about,
right,
human trafficking, which is, human trafficking is very serious and it's real.
right,
Um, yeah, but it's usually someone you are familiar with, or someone that you know, or someone you have in common with somebody else. So it's really about access. It's really about people doing these
right.
things who have access. One of the things I wanted to say too, in terms of going back to talking about the dynamics around domestic violence,
Yeah.
is I want people to understand and know that if this has happened to you, it's not your fault. People
Right, right,
choose. There's no reason for domestic violence other than abusers.
right.
Abusers cause domestic violence, not a behavior, not a boundary setting, not any of that, because people actively choose to cause harm to other people, and we have to hold people accountable for that.
Okay. I
Yeah.
noticed when I went to the center and there was a hashtag healing is possible, and I
Yes.
have that in our thumbnail. So, how would you describe to the audience? I don't know if you want to share from personal experience or working with others. What is the pathway to healing with those who are victims of sexual assault or domestic violence?
Good. That's a great question. And that question came up on Friday when we had a domestic violence event in person out in Macomb
Right.
County. I think that the path to healing is when a survivor or experiencer of domestic or sexual assault have a community of people who will believe them, a community of people who trust that they know what's best for them. I want to also say that healing is not always necessarily getting justice. I
Hmm.
really do not believe that they're related to each other at all, because we have worked with survivors who have had perpetrators go to jail for whatever time and they still struggling just the same as somebody who didn't call the police, who didn't get
Right.
justice, who didn't go to jail. And I just think that it's important that uh, your everybody's path to healing is very individual and very different. But I
Okay.
will say this, at the SASHA Center, we believe that culture cures and that history heals. And we
Hmm.
try to allow spaces for our men who are doing groups with us, as well as women who do groups with us, to engage and understand the resilience of their own people, to understand the importance of our elders, to understand the importance of lowering the isolation that comes with thinking you're the only person that's been through something that's traumatic, when actually there are more people than you actually think. Because what happens in the dynamics of domestic violence, the abusers will make you think that you're going crazy, that you're the only one. They gaslight
Right.
you, they make you feel like there's something's intrinsically wrong with you. And if you start to believe that because it's happening to you so much, you may also start to believe that maybe you perhaps you're the only one. And I think that some of the path to healing is lowering that isolation. I think a
Okay.
path to healing is being able to tell your story and being believed. I think that
Okay.
part of the
Yeah.
healing is also being able to hear a story and process that as well, if that makes sense.
Right. Right. You said something key. So the pathways to healing, sharing your story, being believed. So is it fair to say that one of the ways that people can experience healing is in a place of a safe space of community?
I would say in a safe place of community. And let me also clarify about sharing your story,
Hmm.
because I think in our community, folks are hesitant to come to groups like SASHA Center because they don't want to share their stories. Well, we don't ask.
Okay.
So
Right.
we
Right.
it's not necessarily telling a story is synonymous with healing as well. It is determining when and how and where you want to do that. Because sometimes in Black community, not all the time, but sometimes in Black community, when we're trying to get the help that we need and no one's hearing us and no one's listening, we have
Yes.
moments that get volatile, and it's almost like I don't think that's a safe way for us to manage that as well. We want people to lower their isolation, to be in a space of community, to allow themselves the opportunity to share in their way, the way they want to share. And I don't want to paint a broad brush here, but in our groups, be it domestic violence or sexual assault groups,
Hmm.
um, sometimes people use humor, irony, and satire to tell their stories. And
Right.
in some mainstream organizations, they may take that as a victim not being, or a person who's experienced this, as not being serious about the case, about
Wow.
inciting more violence, or telling them they don't need to be in the program because they misinterpret the things that we say and how we say them.
Okay.
And I think that's also another nuance that makes SASHA Center special, in that we allow people to express themselves in the way that they think is best for them, as long as they're not causing harm to themselves or anyone else. They should be able to take in a story, like I said, and just be in community. They don't have to
Mhm.
tell their story until they're ready or if they want to, but silence breaking is extremely important as well. So the minute that people are able to break their silence and talk about what's happening with them, they need, on top of that, for healing to take place, for ears to hear them without blaming them, without
Right. Right.
accusing them, without interrogating them, without
Right.
making them feel guilty or ashamed about a decision that they made about being with someone. Because sometimes perpetrators of these kinds of violence can be very provocative. They will make you feel safe in the beginning. I mean, when you first start dating somebody, they're not going to just hit you in your mouth on the first day. It has to
Right.
build
Right.
up to that.
Right.
And so by the time it has built up to that, perpetrators tend to break people down so bad that they just don't even feel like they have an option to get away.
Wow. 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 Um, there's going to be people who's watching this, hearing what you're sharing, and they may be a victim of sexual assault or domestic violence. Um, and they're going to discover that they need help and healing. What are some things uniquely that you guys do that will help them? And can you go over some of the groups or services you provide?
Absolutely. So, first of all, anyone who's listening, You can find information out about the SASHA Center by going to sashacenter.org. That's SASHA Center, one word, .org. And you can click on the registration button and you can see everything that we provide. Our 800 number, which we are not a crisis line, but you can definitely call us if you have any questions and we will call you back, is 888-865-7055. Our support group sessions are virtual right now. We have one that's in person at a school that we're partnering with. But other than that, most of our groups right now are virtual. Our support groups last anywhere between 1 to 2 hours, and we have two facilitators who are trained in the space with you to talk about issues such as whether or not you want to tell your story, whether or not forgiveness is important, whether or not you need to engage in more exercise or changing your eating habits or developing a way of developing your own tools that are important to you that are traditional and non-traditional, from using crystals to going to get a one-on-one therapist. All of these things and topics we talk about.
Okay.
Right now, I'm extremely excited because we have at least 7 groups going on per week.
Wow.
So that's
Okay.
almost like every day of the week. But on Sundays, we have a Soul Care Sundays, which is a live conversation on Facebook about these topics. We don't expect for survivors to necessarily participate, but they can be in the space. They don't have to say or talk or do anything like that. Then on Mondays, we have a Making It Through movement at 6 o'clock in the evening, where we are dancing our way through our trauma and dancing our way through healing. And
Wow.
then on
Wow.
Tuesday, I'm sorry, I know you guys say something, but on Tuesday night, we have Healing is Possible. And
Wow.
that's every Tuesday. We take off in December, but it's every Tuesday for the entire year. And all they have to do is go to the website, click on registration, and register.
Okay. So they go to the website, and now is there because you're one organization, is there a limit to how many people you can serve, or how does that work?
We don't have a limit. And it's not, let me explain this to you. I'm gonna push a little bit, right?
Okay,
We
no
don't
problem.
run our organization from a white supremacy standard,
Okay.
meaning one a black woman or man who's experienced a sexual trauma doesn't
Mhm.
have to come to this session and come every single time, every week for the rest of the year, or every
Right,
single
right.
time for that
Okay.
8 sessions. Our sessions are intentionally ran that people can drop in and drop out whenever they want. We do have
Okay.
some closed sessions, but those closed sessions are only made available to those who are already attending the open sessions. Now, when we say
Okay. Okay.
open, I really
Mhm.
want to be clear. You have to register. And then once you register, we have your information. We call you and follow up with you to let you know what's
Okay.
happening and answer any questions you might have. You must have your camera on in a place where no one else is around. And this is the pandemic. The pandemic did this to us, so we
Right.
had to adjust. And
Right. Right.
then we probably soon will be going back in person. We had an in-person walking group over the summer, which we did during the whole entire pandemic, where we walk in a non-disclosed area and just talk about healing from sexual abuse and assault. And one of the things that we do, and it's not just about sexual abuse and assault, it's also about any kind of trauma that you've experienced related
Okay.
to relationships or gender. Um,
Right.
we'll ask these open-ended questions like, what do you have to look forward to as you start your journey on
Right.
healing from your sexual abuse or your domestic violence or trauma? And then we walk and talk about those things, and then we give them tools about that. And then the other thing that we do is we connect Black feminist scholarship, and we connect historical pieces that are so important in this country that we are responsible for, that are good, to give people a story of resilience. Because if our ancestors could get through all what they went through, we definitely can get through the stuff that we're going through now.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So I like the fact that people can come. They register, but they can come and go. You're adjusted due to the pandemic with the virtual group, so that's exciting. And
And
so they
it's
just
free.
go out, and it's free, and it's free.
And it's free.
Which that kind of segues on how we as a community can support you. We're gonna we're gonna show the video that we took of the Sasha Center, and you kind of going over some programs. When we come back, we're going to talk about how we as a community can be supportive, and how we can, whether it's resources or volunteering, how we can be supportive of you, and then you can go into uh, any more announcements or anything that's on your heart that you need to share. So for those who are just joining us, we're here with Kalimah Johnson. She is the founder of the Sexual Assault Service for Holistic Healing Awareness, the SASHA Center. We're going to show a quick video. She gave us a little tour and kind of talked a little bit, touched on some of the programs. So Check this out.
Hello, I am Kalimah Johnson. I am the Executive Director, the founder, and a participant of the SASHA Center. SASHA is in Detroit, Michigan, and it stands for Sexual Assault Services for Holistic Healing and Awareness. Now, we are in our secret location, our non-disclosed address. We don't give this address out to anyone, and it's really just our administrative offices. So let me just go ahead and apologize first. You're going to see a bunch of boxes and everything, but you're also going to see a little bit of beauty. But more specifically, what we do at the SASHA Center, before we get into all of that, is we are a sexual assault agency, specifically working in the African American community with self-identified survivors of sexual assault, and we really try to help them integrate that traumatic experience using culture, using history, using our own language, and using our own ways of living and being. So I am so glad to be a part of this podcast, and I cannot wait to show you all the inner makings of the SASHA Center. So one of the first things I want to say, and this piece I don't believe has a name. It might be called Black Girl Magic, I'm not sure. But the artist is in this piece. It was donated to us by one of our survivors, and it's actually a interpretation of a Culture Cures History Heals tour that we had in New Orleans. This is our administration office. This is where our board meetings happen when we're in person. This is where our facilitators come for resources and support. This is where they make copies. The copier is over in that corner. And this is where we actually work on projects and develop our programming. Speaking of our programming, right now we have 8 support groups running. It's something for everybody, anybody, every day of the week. And we'll talk more about that during the podcast. But here's some of the resources right here on the wall. We have the Courage to Heal workbook. We have Presumed Incompetent workbook. We have all kinds of books written by Black men and women around the issue of healing from sexual abuse and assault. We have all the old school DVDs and everything. Now this one in particular here, listen, I don't want to make nothing fall, but right here is a documentary called No. This is a documentary created and developed by Black women, and it is a film by Aisha Shahida Simmons, who is also an advisor to the SASHA Center. And this is really like our origination story, our Bible that we go to help understand about the dynamics that Black women go through when they're being sexually assaulted. It's a really good find. You can find it online, and I think you can pay like $1 and watch it. I want you to see the color on the wall. So these pictures of these women on the wall came from our original website. And for a long time, the website was the only place we held space. So when we decided to redo this space, they decided to bring these pictures into the space so that we can remember our origination, we can remember where we came from, and we can remember it actually be it reminded and advised about who we are here to serve, which is the Black community, and our groups are for Black women and girls. And they can be 16 years of age or older to participate. Now also you see on the walls, and you may see here on the actual blinds, is the color teal. So teal is the color of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which is in April. This month is October. That color is purple, which is what you saw on the other wall in the kitchen. But October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we know that there are opportunities to help survivors in that way as well. So our hashtag and our little line that we healing is possible. Healing is possible is everything that we write, everything we say, all the things that we do, all the things we try to remind survivors of. And I want to say this too. Survivors actually can come by if they want to and pick up resources. Like we have books, we have condoms, we have information, we have brochures, we have crystals, we have Florida water, we have hula hoops, which I'm going to show you in a second. We have all these things that survivors can actually come and engage with to take home with them for their own healing and their own integration of sexual trauma. So let's follow me. So this is what I want to talk about too. We believe in infusing art and culture into the healing of African American women and girls who've been sexually assaulted, and men as well. And this was a partnership that we had with the Detroit Institute of Arts. And we went to the Detroit Institute of Arts and we made masks, and these masks were made by survivors. And then they had a showing of the mask at the DIA. So imagine a survivor saying, you know, I don't care what you tried to do to me or what you tried to do to take away from me. My art is hanging at the Detroit Institute of Arts. And so that particular exercise, we decided to make masks, but we've also made African drums, and we've also made other kinds of instruments. And then we do tours looking at Black women art, Black men art, and African art at the actual museum, and to talk about the importance of including culture in your healing and integration. And I don't know if you all know, but in Detroit, many years ago, which is not a problem anymore, we had 11,000 rape kits in the city that were not processed, and 82 or 81% of those were of African American women. And what we know is that that was a traumatic event that happened, which also catapulted the making of the SASHA Center. Now, we were also into activism. So here is a Take Back the Night, which usually happens around April or May. This shirt was given to me by Barbara Simon, and she gave it to me because the date is May 3rd, 1980. So we've been taking back the night for a long time, but SASHA Center has led one since 2008, I believe we started, and we are still doing Take Back the Nights even to this day. So when this shirt was given to me by Barbara Simon, who's also a woman activist here in Detroit, and also not a woman of color, she gave this to the SASHA Center, and we thought it would be apropos to frame it to let people know that sexual assault movements and the work against and stopping rape in the city of Detroit has been going on for a very long time. And then that's a piece by Naomi Tajanero, and it's of these Black women, and what she says is that, listen, when you first see a Black woman, you may think we're all the same, but all you have to do is check our background. And so while this well, anyway, so this is Our Issue. Our Issue is a program that was created by DeAndre Levy, who's a former player for the Detroit Lions, NFL player. And this actual activity helped raise about $10,000 for the SASHA Center. And so when they had their actual artist exhibit, and this actual mural is in Eastern Market, and when they did that mural, one of the artists is from Detroit, Sydney James, a Black woman. They gave most of their proceeds for their event and things like that to the SASHA Center. So I thought it was important to kind of frame that and keep that here. And the personal hygiene products room for survivors, they can come here, they can get sanitary napkins, tampons, hair washing stuff, toothpaste, whatever they need. Sometimes we have diapers and other stuff, and we have all kinds of stuff for them. We believe at the SASHA Center that every person who experiences sexual trauma has a right to get back to their bodies, and we always ask, so what's next after sexual trauma? And we're starting a new group tomorrow evening, actually, Let's Talk About Sex, Baby, and these are actually enhancement. It's an enhancement gift for survivors if they want it. It's the rose. So we give roses out to our survivors, and we also give out really cool journals to our survivors so they can write stuff in these. This is a beautiful leather journal, and we believe that survivors should enjoy and have joy in their lives, and to really be able to concentrate and focus. This is a harmony and balance candle. Survivors can come here and pick these up. They're eligible for these things when they attend group. And group is, like I said, we got a group going on every day of the week. So in here is basically where we have and store more books for survivors. They can come here. This is our reading room. They can hang out here and read, or they can color, or do whatever they want to do. We have coloring kits and all that kind of stuff for survivors. And then this is actually a bag of crystals, because we also believe in holistic healing. So these are crystals that were made specifically by Black artists here in Detroit. And this is the instructions on how to use your crystals and why we have this one. This bag is called the Audacity of Worthiness Kit. So it's the audacity to think that you are worthy, because too many times women in our communities that experience sexual assault are treated like they're not worthy of healing, and they're not worthy of dignity and respect. And we know that that's not the case. And so this little bag of tricks, if you will, is just to remind them to center themselves and to use something they can focus on to help them really garner and think about what it means to be worthy. And all of these books primarily are written by African American women, and they were donated to us by my organization that I belong to. I belong to a Greek-led organization, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And this is one of our favorites by Intusaki Shange, for colored girls who consider suicide when the rainbow is enough. Survivors can come and pick these up. And these also are stories of women actually preparing themselves for being able to just push back, fight back, and heal. So we got all kinds of stuff. Yeah, girl, get up and win. I love that. So survivors can come here and just pick these things up, or they can hang out and read here. But we don't have a lot of groups that happen here, so this is really just a space again to refortify our facilitators. But most of our groups right now are happening virtually. We do have one in-person group at Payne Pulliam School that just started last week. And we encourage you to go to the website, like www.sashacenter.org. Click on registration, and you can see all of the actual groups that we have. And one that I'm super excited about is our groups that we have with men. So right now we don't have a weekly group that we have with men. Right now we are having an open forum conversation called Thoughts of a Black Man, ran by Omari Barksdale and Larminder Davis and myself. And what we're doing is having conversations with Black men in community to talk about relationship safety and management, and to also talk about uplifting women and girls in their communities and giving them the tools that they need to make sure that our communities are safe. So that's it. I'm Kalimah.
All right. So that was a nice little presentation. I kept it a little longer because it was so much information that I wanted our viewers and everyone to see about what you do. And is there anything we missed? Because I want to transition to how we as a community can be supportive. Is there anything you
Uh,
want to say about that we may have missed or something?
No, I think all of the questions that you've asked have been great. I think the video captured everything. I
Okay.
do want to say that for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, that we have
Hmm.
a very special activity and event happening on
Okay.
Sunday, October the 30th at 4
Okay.
p.m. And I'm going to
Hmm.
make sure that I send you the flyer. But we're having a
Okay.
conversation with a sensation. A survivor of domestic violence is going to talk with us about how she went from pain to triumph and how she survived. And she is someone very special. It is Ruthie Bolton, who
Okay.
is a former WNBA player and also a gold medalist, and
Okay.
really actually credited with being a part of the first beginnings of a WNBA league.
Okay.
And when she was actually getting her gold medals, she
Hmm.
was with a partner who was abusing her,
Oh,
and
wow.
she still made it through that. And so she doesn't
Wow.
mind sharing her story with us. And there's a documentary about her on ESPN as well.
Wow.
Um, and I believe, and we're going to have a conversation with her. It's virtual, it's free. Everybody can join us. We're going to be
Okay.
giving away her books. We're going to be giving away gift cards. We've partnered with Wayne State University's Commission on the Status of Women
Okay.
for that event, as well as partnered with Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So we're expecting lots of people to register and come and just hear her share her story. Her story is
Okay.
so triumphant and inspirational, and we want to encourage everyone to come out to that. So that was the only thing that I wanted to say.
Okay.
Um, and then to help us more,
Yeah.
you know,
How can we be supportive? Yes.
we're always looking for more volunteers for sure. Excuse me. And what we like to tell volunteers is that, especially if they're Black women, particularly 16 years of age or older, to attend our support groups first so they can learn
Okay.
more about what we're doing.
Okay.
Men in particular, we're always asking for men to help us out when we're having conversations in spaces with men. But
Okay.
anybody, it doesn't matter. You could be non-gender conforming or whatever. If you want to come and just be a
Right.
part of this movement and share our information and refer people to us. And our groups are also for supporters. So let's say, for instance, you know someone who's
Right.
experienced a sexual trauma. You
Mhm.
can come with them, like bring
Right.
folks or encourage them to partake in what we have to offer. And then, of course, we do a lot of community work, and we need help with our community engagement tables, which are starting to open up now more because the
Okay.
pandemic is doing what the pandemic is doing, and people are gathering more. Um, and then also you can donate. You can
Okay.
donate to the SASHA Center by going to our website and clicking on the donate here now. You can send a check to our address, our PO address, which is PO Box 2118, Detroit, Michigan 48211.
Okay.
Uh, and that's also available on the website. You can see that. And usually, what our donation dollars go to is because a lot of our federal funding programs don't allow us to provide supportive money to our participants. Like when participants come to group, sometimes they're eligible to get a $25 gift card for gas or for groceries and things like that. And so our non-discretionary dollars would come from donations. We're allowed to do things for survivors. Like if a survivor says that she really needs some Florida water, we can use that the non-discretionary money to buy Florida water, or to get her hair done, or to help her children get their hair done, or to help them get
Right, right,
groceries.
yeah.
Because contrary to popular belief, people don't think that getting our hair done is a basic need, but it actually is.
Yes,
um,
yes,
and
yes.
protective styles and things like that can help Black women save time in the morning when they're caring for the children. And then it also gives us an opportunity to let survivors know that we value them and that they're important. We've done all kinds of things with non-discretionary dollars, from helping with car repairs, rent, gas, groceries, clothing, all of those kind of things. We don't take clothing as a donation, but we will buy like gift cards from like Old Navy and things like that, where they can go and get their own stuff and what means and what looks good and what they feel like they want to have for themselves.
Okay, okay. So those for the volunteering, they got to come to the group and kind of engage a little bit to see what that's about.
Yeah,
People can definitely, if they're passionate about what you're doing and want to support financially, which I want to make sure everyone knows about that. So give us that website again where we can click that donate button so you guys can have the non-discretionary funds to help those who are in need.
absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Charles. And that web address is www.sashacenter.org. I think you can also do it on Facebook, but let's just keep it safe. Go to our website,
Yeah.
www.sashacenter.org,
Okay.
and donate there. And then also, I really want to be clear. A lot of time, our programming is brand new. This is not being done anywhere in the country. People are trying to
Wow.
just go
Wow.
and teach them how we're doing the work in community to help us heal. So on the website, when you first get there, you will see our toolkit. There's a free toolkit that you can actually look at, and it'll give you a basic understanding of what we're doing. And then there's another toolkit that's $75. It's like a coffee table book. It's so beautiful, pictures of Black women and Black people in community. And then we also offer trainings and workshops and things like that
Okay.
for free, to explain to people our Black women's triangulation of rape model, which is what we developed, which went viral a few years ago, where it was tweeted 8,000 times.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, and so we're really just starting. SASHA Center is
Right.
only 12 years old. Yeah, think about
Yeah.
where people are at 12. Just imagine what we're going to be like at 25.
Wow. Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So those non-discretionary dollars help us do things like pay for trips to New Orleans, or
Yeah.
trip, because we believe that culture cures and history heals. So we take
Culture.
survivors on these cultural engagements, and eventually we want to take a group of survivors to Ghana, West Africa, so they can really
Wow.
learn
Yeah.
their history and learn where we actually come from. Because our story did not start here in the United States. It did not start here in the United States, and we need to
Yes.
be able
Yes.
to grab that and hold that as we're healing.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So those who are viewing, you heard the website. Those who will be watching the playback on our YouTube channel, I'll have the website information in the description, so you can look at that as well. What about if someone, as we wrap up, if they want to work directly with you, maybe they're in another state or a city, and they want to kind of do something similar to what you're doing? How would they get in touch with you to work with you directly?
Sure, they can send us an email at info@sashacenter.org. Info at sashacenter.org, and it'll be emailed directly to me. I get those emails, and they can just express that. And we're open arms. We really want people to understand and just get on board of us doing this culturally specific kind of work, for people who've experienced intimate partner violence and sexual assault. And we really focus on sexual assault, but we know that sexual assault can also happen in the context of relationship. So for this month, October, being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we want survivors and experiencers and people who are at risk to just understand and know that we are here, and that we will be here to continue to try to help people heal. And we really eventually want to eradicate all domestic and sexual violence.
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. So that wraps up our discussion, a conversation with Dr. Or Kalimah Johnson, clinical. She's in her PhD program, so that flipped out. But yes, clinical social worker, licensed clinical social worker, Kalimah Johnson. a leader and legend in Detroit. We want to thank you for your service and just being an advocate for this important issue. I was taking notes while we were talking, and just some of the statistics was just wow, just blew me away. And so I'm definitely encouraged by what you're doing, and whatever way that we can be supportive. I want to encourage people definitely to donate, volunteer, and just bring awareness. And I mean, we could talk about a whole lot of stuff, but I kind of held back with some questions, but we're gonna wrap things up, and I
We gotta
appreciate
do a
you.
part two, and
Yeah,
then
we
thank
gotta do a
you.
part two because I wanted to talk about because you had started in hip hop, and you know how hip hop is kind of pivoted to be more misogynistic. But that's a whole nother. That's probably a whole
That's
nother
another
show.
one.
So
And Mr. McKay, I want to say thank you so much for
yeah,
coming to our Family Fun Day with our
yes,
partnership with Save Detroit. Every
yes,
year we have a Family Fun Day back to school event, and Mr.
right,
McKay came, and I want to thank you for being so supportive of the SASHA Center and
yes,
hanging
yes,
out with Omari and having conversation with Omari,
yes,
with the men, and all of that good stuff.
yes,
So I want
absolutely,
to say
yes,
thank you. We are definitely looking for more male facilitators, so I may have to hit
yes.
you back up.
Okay, all right, all right. I appreciate that. I'm just here to serve. That's what we're about. And thank you again. So for being on the podcast. And for those who if you are watching and you find value in what we're doing, I want to encourage you to like and subscribe to this channel. Every week, I'm bringing you interviews of difference makers who are doing great things in Detroit, and we have this will be episode 51. So we have 51 interviews of people doing unique things, and I believe I'm in the front seat of seeing a quiet renaissance here in Detroit, people doing different things and some things you don't hear in the media. So like and subscribe. We like your support to follow this channel as we grow. I have another guest tomorrow. He is owner of a shoe store. Actually, it's a sneaker exchange, uh, the hottest sneaker exchange in the city of Detroit. He's going to talk about the sneaker business. So people are really into, their Jordans and trading them and stuff like that. So he's going to talk about that. So if you like and subscribe to our channel, we appreciate that. That wrap things up. Everyone have a good night.